Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager, episode 43. Next up is the U.S. Grand Prix, the same race that just took place, uh, 2 days ago in real life. 1 day ago for me at the time of recording. Uh, I had a very busy weekend and week in general, and so I have not completed the race. I'm rewatching the race, watching the replay, and I'm into the later stages. I've got about 20 laps left to go. They're just finishing their final round of pit stops. So I certainly have comments on some of the race, but haven't gotten to the end just yet, and I've just got to get on with my recording here. I just don't have time to spare. In fact, basketball season starts today, so my girls' basketball team, today will be our first practice day, so busy as always. In the meantime, our weather center is ready for an upgrade. For one thing, we already fell off to a lower level of condition, so we need to raise it up. And instead of spending just over $1 million to do that, I felt it was much more pertinent to just make the next upgrade. And so I did wait a little bit until we had a little more money. But now that we've got a substantial chunk of change, 3 million will put us down just a hair under 10 million before we enter that next race, and that's an okay place to be. I found last season we stretched our funds very, very thin at the end of the season and barely came out with enough money to do the engine and get the car rolling for the new season. So I do need to put a little bit away. I'm looking for maybe 15 million if we can manage it, but at least 12 or 13 stored away to handle some end of season transactions that are going to take place. Now, I do expect that our funding is going to go up a lot next season, but I expected that last season and it didn't. But the circumstances, now I know and understand a bit better on what entails that, and being fourth in the constructors not only comes with more prize money, which means monthly payouts for the most part, but also the how much the team is going to commit. That's the primary thing. So we should have much better finances next season. We'll see if that's actually the case. How much better? I have no idea at this stage. And from what I'm seeing in terms of content out there, I certainly haven't looked at anything and everything that exists out there, but from what I'm seeing from the big channels, they're quite a ways behind where I'm at right now. A lot of them are somewhere right around the end of season one, where we're right around the end of season two. So, we're about a good season ahead of a lot of the big channels. But anyway, 3 million, no problem. So I knew I had one more research project coming up on the end of it and on the end of this cycle for hours, and we only have a little bit left to spend. What I had left, I was planning on making into one upgrade, and then saw that we were going to need two to fit in, so I just divided it in half, so it's two smaller upgrades. The other one, we went all out on it, even though it wasn't going to be a major upgrade, and got us right to the end of December. So I expect that whatever this research project will be for next is going to be the same sort of thing. But research project number one for the rear wing is now complete. So in my cycle of 4 changes that there are in terms of regulations for next year, and cycling through researching those 3 at a time, I mean, it makes it pretty good. You're getting a lot of coverage. And we're now at the 1 per for all 4. So there's 1 upgrade. We're going to start cycle number 2 now, getting a second research project done on the suspension. So we pretty much covered off everything with the first research project. Just about. That 30% low speed was the one area on all of them that we're just a little shy of recovering what is lost for the year. Second upgrade will easily get us above and beyond. Now, like I said, we don't have much left, but we're going to commit that, so that's the first stage. And then here's what we're going to do, because right now, this is a project that would be done 21st of November. But when you put more into it, you're extending the time, you're extending the cost, and we want to get ourselves right to the end of the year with this project. Drag reduction is the first area that the car is still having a lot of issues with. That top speed, our drag reduction is well below the grid average. So that's one area that we really want the suspension to help us out with, and that means airflow as well, as a lot of that is going to help not only cornering but definitely the drag reduction side of things. So those are the first two. That's still only pushing us to late November, and we haven't even assigned engineers to the project. I have one spare engineer as it is already, which we're definitely going to be putting towards those later projects to make sure that they actually manage to get done in time. Right now, the window is wide open. The later projects, the window is going to get a lot tighter. So first thing is that downforce to low speed, as that's the one area that's hurting the most. So we want to get the most out of that. That's still only pushing us into November. So I have a feeling we might go kind of all the way on this one. It's only 1st December. And yeah, 6th of December. And that's going to be with a single engineer. It's almost doubling the cost of the project, but I mean, come on, 320K is nothing considering what the cost cap is and where our expenses are at. So maximum project 6th of December is a little early, but that means I don't have to use any spare engineers. We now have 4 spare engineers for future projects. This does lock up 2 of them, so that means we're going to have 7 engineers on that next project. Wondering if maybe we should. Yeah, that's 29 days. You know what? I think we're going about this all wrong. We want to get one more in. We'll be able to get one more in like this. So backing off a little bit, let's say if we take this back to neutral. There's 23rd November. Take this back to neutral. 21st November. You know what? I think I like that. 25 days. That leaves us plenty of a window of opportunity for another suspension research project at the very least. I mean, we know roughly what it takes. And as we'll be into another period, this was minor because of how little research time we could put into it. We'll have a lot more research time available for one more. In fact, at this stage, we already have one that's going to finish right before the end of the year. This will give us a window to have 2 upgrades. So we can put majority into, say, a second underfloor upgrade or the rear wing. It'll be one or the other. And then I think we can hop back on over to something like this and get a secondary suspension project in. And commit a lot more time and research to it, and based on the timing, we should be able to easily fit it in before the end of the year. In fact, it's only taken 25 days. Let's put a little more into it. Make it 27. Everything but the high speed big bonus.
Welcome to the United States Grand Prix. We're in Austin, but there are no wild cowboys on the track this weekend, just some serious horsepower. It's sure to be a race to remember. The Circuit of the Americas has it all. Twists and turns, steep climbs, fast corners, and a power-hungry Sector 2. Quite a headache to balance, even if teams will be looking at maximising downforce overall. With the season nearly concluded, time is running out for the teams. Can anyone make a last-minute breakthrough? Can the leading drivers hold on? Only time will tell. Okay then, let's get to it.
Coming up on the end of Q1, and on our banker lap, roughly half the field was out there. We had a lot of traffic, but we still put in good times. I don't think we were necessarily blocked too heavily as everyone's starting to head out for their final lap. Right now, I've got a bit of a risk that we are taking. Pourchaire is on a fresh set, and we're going to get him out here in just a moment. But Albin, used tires going again. Right now we sit P8, P11. I think that Albin might be okay, and we're going to go ahead and get him out there now as well on that used set. Let's hope he can put in a decent enough time here at the end of Q1. So I'm not worried about Pourchaire. He's towards the tail end. I think he'll have... actually, they're both towards the tail end. That's going to help. But with Pourchaire coming out where he's at with the fresh set, I think he'll be fine. He should get out of Q1. But as for Albin, let's see if this risk pays off, saving that set of tires for Q2. Yellow flag in Sector 1. Somebody must have run wide or locked up. Pourchaire dropping to P12. P13 now. Albin's already safe. He's got 5 guys behind him, so Albin's okay. In the case of Porcher, I'd like to dive into the pits, but I'm calling Porcher in. There's 5 guys behind us. We're safe. We are safe. Let's save those tires. Is it too late for Porcher? It was too late. He crosses the line. We missed that chance to dive in. I don't know if he sat up at the end of that lap, but he is P15 and did not improve. I'm assuming he actually, final corner there, sat up. A lot of penalties out on the grid, so we are going to see ourselves moving up regardless of where we're at. We're into Q2. Sainz, the only car that's going to impact our banker lap here, and oh gosh, that was close for both of them on if that impacted us or not. So for now, yeah, the time seems a bit slow for Albin, especially. Albin loses a lot of time there, but he was on very used tires. That's 3 laps of running. 3 laps of running, and they're more than half gone. So really not lasting long. We're going to have to put that fresh set on and wait till the end to go. So Albin in jeopardy here. Porcher, that was his used tires, so we're going to have to get them both out there for one last run. But obviously it's about Sainz positioning on that one. 4 minutes to go in the session. We'll get guys heading out here shortly. Remember, it's only 10 cars this time. But being towards the tail end of that is usually plenty safe, and here we go. Okay, Porcher first. And Albin. Porcher with a Mercedes just behind him. Oh, Russell in terrible position there. Albin's fine. Right at the end of this thing. Yeah, Porcher's got clean air, but poor Russell stuck behind him. I think both drivers might have been impacted on that first lap. Porcher, we'll see, but competitive, to say the least. Perez down on his time. Leclerc down on his time, though, so that is 2 guys towards the back end that are also going to be looking to go forward. So we could see a very different order here in a moment. Everybody well into that final lap, and here comes that checkered flag. Sainz straight to the top. That bumps both of us down to either the bubble or well out of it. And yeah, poor Russell. Russell's going to struggle behind Porcher on this one. Unable to pass him. Way too close. Porcher crosses the line into P7. Albin, last 2 cars out there. Leclerc right to the top of the standings, so we've got to beat, oh gosh, Russell. Oh, poor Russell. Albin does it. Bumps Porcher down to P10. Russell with a slower time than Porcher because he's stuck behind him the whole time. We absolutely ruined Russell's day. And I mean, look at this. Only 2 of the penalties are behind us. Most of the penalties are up here. This could be a very, very, very high starting spot on the grid. I mean, if we're looking at 3 top cars, it could be, not guaranteed because we don't know, it might only be like a 5-place grid penalty. We could be looking at something like a P4 or P5 starting spot in the race upcoming. Q3, it looks like we've got clean air, Porcher, Sainz, and then Albin and Hamilton. Hamilton absolutely is going to be impacted by Albin here. Sainz probably going to be impacted by Porcher. And for everybody else in the field, this is their run with the fresh tires. They're going to go out again on the same set. It's going to compromise them. It's going to hurt them. And we went out on the used tires for this one. Unfortunately, those used tires not giving us a very good lap time as we're a second and a half off the pace. Now in the case of Porcher, if we use that fresh set, it's not available for the race, Now, we're probably not using the softs at all in this race. Actually, this is like a medium to hard kind of race. There's no extra set of hards. There is an extra set of mediums, so we could end up with a two-stopper that's medium, hard, medium. For the race upcoming, we're probably not going to need the softs at all, in which case maybe it's not a bad idea to see what we can get with Pourchaire, because we're going to have a very high starting grid position, and you can see just the softs do not last. At best, 17 laps, which means really at best you're looking at 12 to 13 laps. More likely it's about an 11 lap window for the softs, which is just not good. So let's go ahead and use them up. And here we go. Everyone is starting to head out. Let's go get Pourchaire first. And we'll get Albin second. I think Albin just to the back there. Pourchaire in the middle of the pack. Now, I expect most of that top 8 will not have changed times on this final lap. Let's go ahead and slow things down as we come through Sector 3 on our warm-up lap. Now look at that, everybody's already below 80%. Huge drop off on what their times should be here because the tires just don't hold up. Well, I'd actually be surprised if really anyone besides our guys improve their time. But we are so far behind on times. What can we do? It's Pourchaire we are riding with. He is in the middle. We'll jump to Albin after the fact. Hamilton does go green, which that makes sense as he was stuck behind us, so he's improving his time. Sainz is not, so those are the only ones that I could see really having a change in their times. Hamilton won't improve as much as he should, though, because the tires are very used, but we might see him improve a little bit. Sainz not improving at all. We are green in everything so far. Verstappen and Gasly do not improve. Perez does not improve. Sainz is the other one who is held up a little bit. No. Hamilton improves, but not enough to get out of P6, and that's the problem with the used tires. He had a Pourchaire, only P9, so he does not move up the order. What about Albin? Albin, we know he's going to improve. Vettel did not improve, so this could be good. Can we get above Vettel? Can we get above Magnussen? No, only P9. So P9, P10, but of course there's plenty of penalties ahead of us. That was disappointing that we could not overcome those two. How close did we get? Really, 1 millisecond out. Here's the thing about those front Gasly in the Alpine, but carrying a penalty. He's got brand new engine. We do not have anything new at this point, so that's one thing that's holding us back. But there's 3 cars that are definitely going to be ahead of us. There's 3 cars that are possibly going to be ahead of us. If they're carrying 5-spot grid penalties, they'll still be ahead of us. Magnussen and Vettel, we know we'll move ahead of them. So I'm guessing that P7, P8, and I'm guessing that at least one of these 3 will have more than 5-spot grid penalties. So maybe we're looking more like P6 and P7.
The grid is packed and there's electricity in the air. But there's no surprises in that. It's race day.
Qualifying went well for Williams, as attested by their strong position on the grid. Now it's all about finding that edge for the race itself. These past few days, Ferrari have been absolutely thrilling their fans. Now let's see if they can make the Tifosi proud by capitalizing on that grid position. And the sun is shining bright here today. This is perfect weather for teams and drivers alike to show us what they're capable of.
No doubt, there's a lot to contend with here at the United States Grand Prix. It's going to be a thrilling outcome to a thrilling weekend.
So it's a P5, P6 starting grid for us. We are looking at the medium, hard, medium. That's all we have for the tires. So we're very much locked into that medium, hard, medium. I don't think we're going to see a lot of other options materialize, even if there are, like there was in the real race, safety cars at specific times that change the outcome of the race. Setup's good. We didn't get it perfect, but 97, 96. Both drivers are in good shape. entering this one, and we do have a good starting grid position. But if you look at the tire wear for what we're expecting in this race, we're looking at lap 18, lap 41 for those stops. The mediums at the end may get a tiny push, as they're only going to have to go a lap or two less, 15 really. So they do have less of a push, but of course lighter fuel at that point is going to put more strain into the tires, and they're going to wear out a little faster than they will early on when it's a heavier load and you're having to take it easier on pace. So that combination, you could see there's maybe a little push that you can make at the end, but realistically we're looking at tire wear being ultra high in this two-stop strategy. There's no hards to use to stretch things, so we cannot afford to push. We're going to be doing a lot of sitting, which means I've got a little light on the fuel, 1 lap worth to lighten the load, speed us up a little bit that way, which means we'll have to be conserving a lot more and just kind of holding, which could actually make this a relatively quick race. But from a strong position on the grid, we'll see what we can hang on to going forward. Now, a lot of those cars that were faster than us in Q3 were that because they have brand new components that make them faster, but of course gave them penalties. We'll see how far back down the grid a lot of those cars are. Do we have slower cars behind us, in between us and those faster cars, or are those faster cars only going down the grid a little bit, meaning they're going to have a lot more pace and probably be able to pass us quite easily? So don't necessarily think we're in for, like, say, a P5, P6 type finish. We could face some challenges, especially with an inability to push. Let's hope we can get a DRS train just ahead of us. Obviously, that's the car's strength, is that DRS train. When we're in it, we perform much better. When we get out of it, when we lose it, and we have to start running on our own, we are a bit off the pace.
It's sunny and bright as the drivers line up on the grid. Here we have Alexander Albon. A top 10 position today, but will they be able to capitalize on it? And looking at the second Williams car, they might not be in the top 3 spots, but things could change fast once the race gets underway. Will their hard work pay off today? Sit tight and get ready. It's the United States Grand Prix. It's lights out and away we go.
All right, and we are racing here in Austin. Very much might be the same country that I'm from, but it is like a different world. It is like a different world there. Russell is the one who is P7, and Russell came all the way up from P11 to be there with us. As remember, we got in Russell's way during qualifying. He was in a much faster car. It is Pourchaire who held him up then, and it's Pourchaire who is holding him up now. For Pourchaire, don't know how long we can really hold Russell off. So we're going to need to, well, for one, save that battery. Clean race so far. It's Sainz who leads from Perez and Hamilton, and then Verstappen to this front four are much faster. You can see Albon is, well, it looks like we're right on the wheels of Verstappen, looking to the inside, so the time gaps are not quite accurate at the moment. Pourchaire definitely has a bit of gap, and for that might need to push on that little bit longer here to keep up, to get that DRS, otherwise he's just going to be sitting backwards. But in the case of Albon, he is quite close to Verstappen, so we'll drive aggressive a little bit longer, but keep the engine, or turn the engine down. And that's going to allow us to ease off a little bit and hopefully just get the benefit of DRS to help us keep up with these guys now instead of having to push. We very much need to settle in for the long term. No rain expected today. In fact, the biggest chance of rain is right here in the early minutes. Perez was outside of DRS range of Sainz. Speaking of Sainz and the U.S. Grand Prix, so we just had the race, right? Now, I know Russell was given a penalty for the Turn 1 incident. I will give both the reason why the penalty was the right call and why it was completely the wrong call. Now, from certain angles, it looks like it's entirely Russell's fault that he hits Sainz. And the lockup is ultimately the reason why Russell is given a 5-second penalty there. But outside of the lockup, the incident is entirely Sainz's own fault. Now, in normal racing circumstances, at other points during the race, outside of Turn 1, Lap 1, what Sainz does is nothing wrong. But on Lap 1, Turn 1, the last thing that any driver should do, and all 20 drivers know this on the grid, the last thing they should do is run a switchback and change your line, driving across the track. That's exactly what Sainz attempted to do. So if you look at the onboard and if you look at the outside, excuse me, just hit the mic there. If you look at the outside Turn 1 camera, you quite clearly see how Sainz off the line, he was on pole. Remember, he had the advantage, he had the lead. He gets a lot of wheel spin off the line. Now, that wheel spin allows Verstappen to get the jump on him, and Verstappen's going to have the inside for Turn 1. So Sainz, who is a little down on momentum entering Turn 1 as a result, brakes early and attempts a switchback. Now, we've seen the switchback work at Turn 1, at, what is that, Turn 7, 11, whatever this is, this corner here as well. So these two corners that are very similar to each other than Camber being the main difference between them, but otherwise very similar corners. This corner as well has a similar feel to it. But anyway, in those corners, what you have is an opportunity of braking early and then taking the apex in a different manner that allows you to get on the gas early. And so you're able to go from outside to inside and then using that on the gas earlier to accelerate a little bit harder and have a better run coming out of the turn. So we've seen, yellow flag sector 1 by the way, and we are hanging on nicely. For sure, just barely hanging on. We've got to settle in and hope that we can hang on. It's Schumacher who had that lockup. His goal, I don't know where he was, but he's P20 right now. Pourchaire just hanging on here. I think Pourchaire is going to have to use battery to keep up. That needs to be the way we do it, because we need to conserve the tires. We definitely don't have the fuel to push. So use a little battery to close up. Just about does so there. So let's go back to neutral, and let's hope that that's enough to get him by the end of the straight here. Back in racing distance, DRS distance, train distance for him. Anyway, we saw the switchback work. Hamilton just about made it work with re-overtaking Verstappen late in the race. I have completed the race, by the way, now while I was running through practice here on my second monitor, watching the rest of the 20 laps of the race. So Hamilton just about made it work, but Leclerc did make it work. Who else did we see make it work? At some point, somewhere. I know there was another one. I know there was at least 3 of them. But anyway, switchback can be an effective tool. Sainz did it Turn 1, Lap 1. With 18 cars side by side, 3 wide. You don't do that. There's not enough space on the track to do that. He was focused entirely on his battle with Verstappen for the race lead. He brakes early, goes wide, comes in to try to hit the apex, but he was nowhere near the apex, and he's still coming across the track right to left with two Mercedes that are side by side, and here's the problem for Russell, where I think he's got nothing he can do at this point. Now, had he not locked up, and that's the key to this one, if he doesn't lock up, I think everyone looks at that replay as we get a little concertina here as 3 wide became 2 wide. Sainz was the one who has to back out of it a little bit and bumps him back into Verstappen and us. You can see just how tight we are right now. But we're hanging on to the train. That's the important part. Gasly also hanging on to this train. The end of the train is Gasly. Ocon on back while losing ground on his front loop. So that's going to be a key for us going forward as the field starts to stretch out a bit here. Let's speed things up. It's lap 6. If Russell doesn't lock up, then blame is squarely on Sainz for cutting across the track. Like I said, later on, nothing wrong with doing that. It's an effective tool. But turn 1, lap 1, you cannot dive across the track, especially on the first corner, right? The field is too bunched up for that. The blame should be squarely on Sainz for diving across the track, putting his car where another car already exists as he does that. He doesn't see them, but that doesn't mean the blame's not there. You don't do that on turn 1, lap 1. Towards the end of the lap, as the field has started to stretch, lap 2 on, fair game. You don't do that on lap 1. Every driver knows that.
And a new position
so,
just gained by Williams.
Blaming Russell immediately was just like, oh, Russell's going to get a penalty there, because he saw the lockup and nothing else. Now, yes, there was a lockup from Russell, but Russell makes the apex, is making the exit. He's got no problem coming out side by side with his teammate Hamilton in that situation, in that race. He's cleanly there. Sainz had a lockup and drops back, so we actually move up ahead of Sainz. We now sit in P4 and P5, but Albon through that loses the DRS. So we have fallen out of DRS range here on lap 11. That's going to drop us back. So
collision.
Yep, there it is.
Here's the replay.
All right, let's see what happened.
All eyes on Kevin Magnussen here.
So that is K-Mag. He's going to brake late.
And there's the collision. It's caused absolute...
All right, so K-Mag is out in the Haas. He was hit from behind by the AlphaTauri, and that is Guan Yu Zhou. And so does the whole front end of the grid. So they got the same idea. We're not the only ones here. We're not the only ones. Hamilton was the first one to pit previously. So he's going to... We'll see how that turns out for him. He's going to cover things on the ground from where he would have been otherwise. And there is Albon's pit, 2.57. And Pourchaire, 2.6. He's held up. Albon got out clean. Pourchaire is definitely held up, waiting for at least 2 cars to go by. He's going to be definitely further back down the order. But that is Albon in P3, just behind Hamilton. So Hamilton didn't lose much at all. He comes out in P2. Verstappen leads. And Hamilton, Albon is P3. Great job there. And now go light. Alright, I see we are surrounded by medium compound runners, so keeping up with them is going to be the goal of this stint here, as Pourchaire, at least, in P9 is surrounded there. What about the front runners? Now, here's the thing with Pourchaire. Had we not pit Pourchaire, he'd be running P1 right now. He would be running P1. But he'd be pitting in probably 2 to 3 more laps from now. And looking at the gap, 2 liter, right? if we're 11 seconds ahead of Schumacher and then we pit, we're going to come out in last place by 10 seconds. So even though coming out in P9 is far less than ideal, it's nowhere near as bad. Nowhere near as bad as it could be. Porsche. You're going to have to push on. You're more than a second down now.
Heads down, focus.
1.2. He's 1.2 behind. Albin is also 1.9 behind. So Albin is already missing out. Starting up a train with front two right away. He just doesn't have the kind of pace he needs to keep up with those guys, especially without pushing and being on the hard compound. Speaking of, who is on that compound right now? Wow. Okay, most everybody is opting for the medium hard. We are surrounded by Guan Yu Zhou and Sonoda, the only other ones that are on the hard tire. And Zhou, of course, picked up that penalty, so I can see that being, race altering. Oh, that's gonna impact the late race. Albin's gonna get passed pretty easily. Yeah, there's Russell already just going past him now. So Russell has gone past. No surprise there. DRS very first time when we're on the hards and he's on the mediums. But can we keep up with him now? Because we certainly couldn't keep up with the front two. Are we going to slowly go backwards? They're all going to pit sooner than us and we're going to be faster later in the race. But I don't think that that's necessarily going to translate back into positions because these guys are in faster cars. So I think Gasly's the one that we can get back at later, but otherwise, that front six is going to slowly make their way past Albin here, and there's not going to be anything we can do. It's going to be sitting duck territory for us. Porsche, meanwhile, how did we do on the interval? Back within a second. DRS. And Gasly misses out on DRS, so it's going to allow us to close up on him. That's good for our race for Albin. Tucked back in when we were in the prime position. We had the inside track and then we decided to tuck in, so we got out of it on the exit when we should have. We had the inside of the apex. We were in. Oh no! Oh my goodness! Wow. Okay, so that's twice there that Porsche backed out of it at the beginning of the straight and the end of the straight, and that causes Ocon, who's under braking, to come up to our inside and nearly wipe us out. Oh. Stroll is out of the race.
There's been a crash. Let's have a look.
I think he might have crashed on his own on this one.
This was the Aston Martin.
Almost 3 wide. It's going to go to the inside, lock up, and run straight on. Oh, head on into the wall. That's terrible. Until the final corner to get back on it. Albin in a great position here. Can we get an overtake on Russell? Done here on the straight. No, Russell just has too much pace and he drives away from us here. Safety car period. We're getting that 2 laps back, so we're right back into the window we need to be in to get to the end on this one. Porsche, meanwhile, though, difficult overtake to make, but we're having a look to the inside. We are under braking. We're going to get to the inside here. Can we turn that into an overtake? As we continue on side by side, but we do have a slight advantage. A couple of right-handers before we go back to the left-handers, and once we hit the left-handers, I think we're going to complete the deal here, and we do. And Sector 3, yellow flag. Leclerc dropping to last place with a spin.
DRS.
Okay, well that's going to bring us up the order a little bit. Porsche now P7. And run these tires a little bit harder. I think we're +1 in terms of laps right now on our window. So like I said, we hit that 4 laps early, but we recovered 2 of those laps. And now we've recovered at least the other two. But I think we were either neutral or maybe +1. And there you go. It starts. Verstappen peels off into the pits. He's the first one. Sector 3, yellow flag. It's not us. Unless it's Porsche. Somebody ran wide. It's Ricardo again. And they all dive into the pits. They all dive into the pits. So now it's time to go aggressive. Making these tires last that long is the tricky part. Hamilton has flown past Joe and Tsunoda, and he's already quickly catching Porsche. We are going backwards really quickly, extending this stint. But those medium tires, we can only pit so early, and that's the problem. This is what I worried about happening, us getting out on our own. Porsche has already been caught by Hamilton. How long can he hold him up? He held him up through turn 1. I love how Porsche's managed to actually hold up Hamilton here for at least half a lap so far. It's lap 30 darn anyway. We're looking for about 2 more laps before we pit, and Porsche can no longer hold up Hamilton. Fuel, we've definitely done okay with fuel for Albon. That little extra straight line oomph, and not using it on the rest of the lap is doing okay for us. Lap 40. Lap 40. I think Porsche needs to pit this lap. But he's holding guys up, so I'm kind of tempted to leave him out as long as he can hold some guys up. Oh, Porsche into the wall. Porsche has gone into the wall.
Let's take a closer look.
Wow.
Now we
He's
see
the master of doing
here.
this out of nowhere. He didn't even lock up or anything. He just drove straight into the wall. He forgot to
Oh,
turn.
a nasty crash there.
We had just turned down the engine too, just before he did that.
And the
Is this going to lead to a safety car? Okay, we saw a little smoke, little puff of smoke. He must have walked up the right front. Alright, let's ride with Porsche, who's already down to P15. Joe and Tsunoda both into the pits as well. So they go 1 lap earlier than expected. And Porsche's race is totally ruined as we're going to be at the very back of the grid following this one, plus the extra time for the stop.
Alright, go push. Okay,
A couple
copy.
corners to go until we pit, so we're pushing on for
Yeah, we can use
the
the
remainder of it. Hopefully we don't get a mistake
Yes.
here either. 2 corners to go. Well, really only 1. Stop. But we're going to be on the mediums. We're going to be faster. You can see Joe Tsunoda way down to 15th. We'll be ahead of that for sure. Porsche is 6.5 seconds behind Schumacher, who's 6.5 seconds behind, well, the field. Albon has a nice big gap behind, so no worries there. We're already within a second. Boy, Albon diving back and forth trying to decide where to go, and here's that problem with Bottas, right? He's got DRS. Can we make a double, triple, 3 wide? No, we tuck in. We don't push on out. We seem to wait for Bottas to pick his line before we make a move, and so then we back off, lose 3/10, and then we gain it down the straight. But then by the time we get to the end, we're not in position. This time we do have Bottas to the inside. This is going to make it much easier from here because Gasly's going to be a much easier overtake. He's a sitting duck without the DRS. We still have not completed the move. Do not tuck back in, please. But, hey, we've made a lot of really good strategy calls this year. Today's strategy of a medium, hard medium has not paid off. To get out there, but use the DRS to get us in the right position. New fastest lap for Albon, even though we conserved for a good chunk of it, but running out on your own there is what made that difference. Whoa! Big spin there for Sainz, and we just avoid it. We just avoid it there. Okay, back to neutral. Yes, we are closing up again. We've gained a second, but even a second a lap, you see we're just about to run out of time. So this seems to be it. Hamilton with a spin or a lockup on turn 19. So his 4.5 second advantage locks up.
But that could have been much worse.
This game is so cruel to those top drivers.
Devastated.
They make 2 mistakes a year in real life, 3 mistakes a year like that in a race, and here Hamilton now P7. It's Russell who's now in the lead, by the way. Verstappen over a second behind, and then Perez over a second behind. So those guys out of DRS. Leclerc, Vettel still in DRS. Ocon is 2.5 seconds back, and Hamilton is 1.3. We're within 4 seconds now, but I just don't think that's something we can make up. Russell, 1 corner to go. Will claim the win. I believe that's his first of the season. Leclerc, second. So Leclerc comes through. So the Red Bull's going backwards. They did not have the pace here at the end of the race. Verstappen 3. Yeah, at least keeps a podium. Perez 4. Vettel is going to get P5. Hamilton P6.
You guys did it.
Ocon P6. 7.
Yeah, nice job.
Only
Nice
P8.
job.
Saw that coming though. Really did. And Sainz is going to get P9. With Tsunoda up in P10. Points stay for the Haas, even if it's only 1. Gasly falls out of the points to P11. So only 1 Alpine scoring. Bottas, Alonso 12 and 13. Ricardo 14. Joe Norris, and there is Porsche just about bringing up the rear. P17, that is our worst race in a long time. And that was all about strategy, just not panning out. Schumacher, last car across the line in P18. Stroll, Magnussen DNFing today. That's going to do it for this one. Our P4 is still very much secure. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe. See you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.